All right, so if you're working with AutoCAD 2020 or AutoCAD 2021, it is a little bit different when you are working with blocks, okay? Control C, Control V, that stuff all stays the same. That's not a big deal. But if you go to the Insert tab and click on Insert, in addition to having the blocks up here, you could type I for Insert, and a big panel will pop up on the side here. And what you see in the panel are 3 tabs for what's in the current drawing, blocks you've used recently, and you can actually go and search through other drawings to find blocks. So just in this current drawing, I've already uploaded a bunch of blocks for you. So in my bathroom here, I've brought in a couple of lavatories. Oh, why don't you look for a tub? Why don't you look for a shower stall, right? And again, click and drag. And if you are on the layer for furniture, well, then it comes in on furniture. But we should be on the layer for fixtures and appliances, right? And if we set that current, and then the next thing I bring in should come in on the correct layer. All right. So we'll bring in a refrigerator, we'll bring in a range, we'll bring in a nice sink for the kitchen. And then heck, find some decorative elements too. Why not? Got a little sofa, we got table and chairs, a urinal, that's always helpful, right? Water closet. Okay. And then with the different elements here, your job is to go in and arrange, right? And say, hey, do I have enough room for all this stuff? Do I have enough room in the living room and the kitchen area for this table along with that couch? Maybe not, maybe not. So you might have to make some decisions on what you actually have room for. Remember, this is not a 4,000 square foot mansion. This is a garage that's been converted into a little tiny apartment for a single person. Okay, so you might not have a lot of space to work with. Okay, but set it up the way you want to, and I'll set mine up the way I want to, and we'll take a little look at what we get when we're done. All right, so I've got mine arranged kind of, sort of, how I want to have it, and it's not perfect, but again, we're not trying to win any design awards here. We're just trying to figure out how blocks work and what groups are, and how to do some basic architectural drawing conventions. Blocks, I gotta tell you, are much more powerful than groups. Blocks are pretty amazing, and we reserve blocks and instruction about them for the next class in the series. So if you're interested in becoming a power user that could be employed doing CAD, that's definitely something you want to give some thought to. Is there anything else that we require at this point? For our intents and purposes, I think things are pretty good. You can move text around if it's in the way. And then I thought maybe one nice little last touch. I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. I'm going to call that layer hatch. And I'm going to find a color that works for me. For the hatch layer, we're going to make the weight very light though, 0.00, which is super thin lines. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to turn some stuff off. I'm going to turn off the doors. I'm going to turn off the text. And these plants here, I'm going to turn them off too, or at least move them out of the way. Maybe I'll just move them because I put them on the furniture layer. Go to the hatch layer, and at the midpoint of the doorway I'm going to draw a line. At the midpoint of the doorway I'm going to draw a line, and maybe even with the edge of the kitchen here I'm going to draw a line. Over the doorway, draw a line. Okay, so some things that we've talked about hatch can be used for. One of the things also is to add some texture to the drawing. And one of the things that you might want to add for a little texture, just for fun, is some flooring, right? So what do I mean? Well, If you go in and you find a pattern, for example, this crosshatch here, right? And we jack up the scale to 12, and I click inside the bathroom area. As long as that is a closed shape, AutoCAD should find the edges of it. And I think that would be a very small tile. I don't really like that. So I'm going to jack it up a little bit to 36. I still don't like it. How about 48? Yeah, getting there, you know. 6. That's much better. That's what I like. Okay, so that looks like tile. And if you're not happy with the scale, change the scale. If you're not happy with the angle, change the angle. And we can set one of the rooms up with square tile at one scale. We can take a look at another room and we can say, okay, carpeting maybe in a bedroom, right? So what's going to look like carpeting? You know, for me, dots. Dots look like carpeting, but you can use whatever you want. And we're just trying to get the areas that are not taken up by furniture or fixtures. And then sometimes Hatch does funny things. Look at this. You see how the hatch went into the little edge of the bed here, you know? If you're not happy with that, there's all kinds of stuff you could do to alleviate that. But Hatch is kind of an odd bird sometimes, especially when you're working with shapes that have shapes within shapes within shapes. And that's what we have here. We have several lines within lines. And that's kind of why it's flipping out and adding that there. But you know what? Good enough for what I'm doing here. It didn't put it in the chair. It didn't put it in the computer. It didn't put it on the keyboard. So I'm fine. And then maybe for my kitchen here, I'll do some more tile. I'll find some architectural parquet flooring. Oh, that'd be nice. Architectural parquet. And the scale will probably be out of control when it comes in. It'll be way too big because it's already sized up for architectural work. All of those AR layers, all those AR hatches are already sized for big stuff. Yeah, you can see here how it's kind of big, right? So I'm going to reduce that down to maybe 4. Take a look at it. No, 2. Okay. I'm liking the pattern. I'm not really liking the fact that it's spilling into the counter, though. So when that happens, I'm having a problem. The problem might be something simple. The problem might be something more complicated than I'm planning on working with. What I'll do is I'll just go around. I'll draw a boundary so that AutoCAD knows where to stop. Because, you know, sometimes it just doesn't know where to stop. And Hatch, while it's so simple, can be really frustrating. And then I will close the polyline. Okay, so AutoCAD should have an easier time hatching that shape than trying to figure out, yeah, there we go, that's much better, right? And maybe reducing that down to 1. That looks good. And how about for our living room area? Maybe some hardwood flooring, some laminate flooring. I'll go up to ANSI 32, ANSI 31. And we'll do ANSI 31 in this area. You can see it's spilling into the couch though. Not really happy about that. So, you know, same idea. If you're if you had to, you could go in and spend a lot of time tracing the outline of the couch. But I think something simple like that will probably take care of us. So let's try that again. We're doing ANSI 31. We're doing it at an angle of 45. So we got strips at a scale of 24. So it's big strips. Still spilling, huh? Okay. I'm going to just move you out of here, funny boy. See, the couch is the problem, so we'll just move the couch. And we'll hatch. We'll try it here now. I like it. How about minus 45 for the angle? There we go. Okay, and you could even get things cleaned up beyond that if you wanted to throw a little fillet on there or something, right? So I'm just trying to outsmart the hatch, and maybe the hatch is a little bit smarter than me today. But you get the idea. And the hatch, what does it do? Well, it just adds a little bit of texture to the drawing, right? It's not absolutely required. Definitely don't try to hatch stuff, though. If you've got those plants out there with all those leaves, oh my gosh, it'll have a heart attack. Right, so let's move that stuff back to over here, because the plants can sit on top of the hatch, and there's no harm, no foul. And I'm pretty happy with how things are looking here, okay? So here's our little mini architectural drawing, and in doing this, we've talked about a lot of stuff, right? We've talked about drawing the elements of the building and how the layers, right? Aren't the layers set up with names that make sense? These are all elements of the building. That's frequently what we're going to see on an architectural drawing. We've talked about countertops with cabinets underneath and countertops that have cabinets above, and how to change that LTS, that line type scale, in order to be able to see those dashes. We've added blocks, we've made some groups, we've even added a hatch to dress things up. Okay. So a lot of stuff accomplished with this little exercise, and I think this is going to set us up well for the assignment that follows. So I'm sure now you're ready to break out the tape measure and start in the room you're in, your bedroom, your kitchen, your living room, wherever, and start measuring, right? We want to measure up the room, we want to measure up the whole house, the whole apartment, and draw it out in CAD, you know, and it's not a bad idea. The more you do this, the more experience you'll have with it, and the closer you'll be to being independent and drawing things like this on your own. So, for the class materials over in the course pack, let's take a look and run through. We talked about switching our units to different units. We worked with groups. Hopefully, the idea of drawing units needing to be specific to the kind of project you're working on makes sense now. Adding things in decimal and fractional input and architectural input should be clear now. Drawing setup is kind of critical, and the more you set up in the beginning, the better off you are. It'll be less work at the end to do. We talked about making groups with the group button and turning groups on and off with the button that controls grouping behavior. And groups are nice because they let everything stick together, right? It's easier to move around a group than it is to select all the lines every time and not have to worry about maybe you missed one. Copying and pasting in between drawings. We see that Windows has some built-in shortcut keys for doing that. Control C is copy, Control V is paste. And we were able to take the furniture from this drawing and plop it into that other drawing. Right? So, our drawing assignment. Drawing assignment is we're going to be drawing a classroom. It's the CAD lab over in the MS building, MS9. And normally what we would do is we would break the class up into groups of 2. And then each group of 2, we'd need one person to take some notes while the other person was in charge of measuring. Right, so each group would get one of these Stanley 25-footers, and we'd go around the room and we would measure the walls. And the idea is, once you have the measurements of the walls, you can go back into AutoCAD and start drawing, right? And if walls have thickness, we can add the thickness, so we can measure the doors, right? We can do all that stuff. So, what are we going to do? Because let's face it, we are not in the position right now at the campus. How we're going to handle this if we are online, that'll be the question, right? So let's get it started, though. Let's start a new drawing from scratch. Let's save the drawing with the name B12-6A- your initials. First thing off, set the units to architectural units, right? Then we can type in feet. Then set the limits. And the reason you do the units first is, what if you tried typing in 68 feet while you're still in decimal units? So that wouldn't work, would it? So units go first, limits go second. 68 feet by 44 feet for your upper right corner should give you plenty of room to do your drawing. You're going to make some layers, and there'll be fewer layers in this drawing than there were in the one we just did together as an exercise. We'll have a border around the drawing, we'll have doors, we'll have furniture, we'll have text, and we'll have walls. Okay, so there's quite a few more things we did on our exercise that would be not required for this drawing. And then for our text, we're going to make a text style called Country Blueprint using the Country Blueprint font. Okay, so set up the drawing, follow the instructions. You're going to draw a rectangle for a border, and then basically after that, you're going to draw some walls and doors and add some furniture and desks and chairs. So if we are in class doing this, again, you'd be responsible for making a sketch and going around and then measuring everything up. It's called measure up. And then you and your partner sit down and you both each use your notes to create the drawing of the room. Okay, what are we going to do since we are not over in the classroom in the MS building? Let's see, rotate. All right, this is what we're looking for. Here is the MS9 classroom, and it's got a countertop with a printer. It's got a plotter in the back. The teacher's desk is up here. The entry foyer is out here. Storage room behind my desk. So if we are not in a position to go to the campus and measure up, we're going to have to rely on a drawing. And I've got a drawing to give you. I will email it to you so that you have the raw materials you need to create the room, as well as to put in the doors at the proper locations. Okay, so if we're in class, then you'll do measure up. You'll do the whole room, you'll measure all the elements, you'll be responsible for everything. Size of the desks, spacing between the wall and the row, space between the rows. But if we are online, I'm going to have to give you some of this information. So this is going to wrap up our discussion. Follow the instructions to the best of your ability. If you got questions, that's what I'm here for. That's why I make the big bucks, or at least the medium bucks. Your finished drawing basically looks like this when it's all done. And you'll be sending me a PDF if you're in the online class. There is some information on page 1410 about an app. This is a great little app. I have it on my cell phone. I have it on my tablet too. If you're a person that builds things or a person that is responsible to measure things, and especially if you're a person that has to measure things and make CAD drawings of them, Photo Measures is kind of cool. You take a picture of something with your cell phone camera, and then you can add measurements directly right on the screen, right in front of you, which is pretty cool. I know I used to scribble things down on a little piece of paper and then write down the sizes, and then at the end of the day, the piece of paper is lost, or I don't take it out of my pocket and it goes through the washing machine, then I can't read it again. I've never put my phone through the washing machine. Okay, so when I do projects now, I take a snapshot on my phone, I use the tools in the app to add measurements directly on the photo, and then I've got all that stuff in my phone anytime I need it. So you might want to take a look at this. This is kind of a neat application. If we were in class, we'd be using it. Since we're not in class, we're not using it for any specific assignment, but I will definitely give you some extra credit for using it, and I'll give you some instructions on how to do that over on Canvas. Okay, so that ends our discussion, and on you go to our MS9 classroom drawing.